Barbershop Podcast, episode number, what do we got, Ryan? Was this 160?
160.
160.
Yep.
I think that is a profound number somehow. If you're into numerology, maybe you can get a hold of us.
Double 80.
Double 80, I
4
like
times
that.
40. Wow, this number's great for my OCD.
Yeah, your math mind's working great tonight. Barbershop Podcast coming to you live from Boxo Studio in Hamilton, Ontario. Every week, every Wednesday, live on Twitch TV at twitch.tv/podcastbarber. Podcast Barber also being our Twitter handle at Podcast Barber. Why don't you grab us there, or Facebook. We got a Facebook page, or Google us, Barbershop Podcast, 3 words, 1 message. The power of music. We love it here from Boxo Studio, Hamilton, Ontario. Want to welcome once again Ryan Cannon, Gary Greenland to the podcast. You guys got an easy one tonight as far as the technical aspect of it kind of goes. So everyone is enjoying the hell out of not having to set up drum kits and keyboards and 3 guitars and everything else. And we got a treat for you tonight. We have someone in the studio who has more than just musical stories. There's life stories, there's associations, and there's probably something for me and you in it as well. He's a super humble guy, so he's not going to drop names, but I am. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick rundown on who we have in the studio tonight. Barbershop Podcast. Bill Dillon is our guest. Bill Dillon, I'll just go right down the list. 1991, Ian Thomas forms the Boomers, and it was a big cult band in Germany, still with Bill Dillon, and bassist Peter Cardinelli, and drummer Rick Gratton. I should have worn my glasses, you know. The Boomers released 4 LPs over 10 years. What We Do, The Art of Living. He played on albums with Nancy Griffith, Edie Brickell, Counting Crows, Robbie Robertson, Joni Mitchell. Robbie Robertson featured you for Robbie Robertson's Storyville, music for the Native American, as well as Color of Money, and Jimmy Hollywood soundtracks. Played for Ronnie Hawkins, Sylvia Tyson, Mark LaForme. Again, Joni Mitchell in the Turbulent Indigo, Martin Page, Over the Rhine, Edie Brickell, Picture Perfect Morning, Sarah McLachlan's first album. You played for the Pretenders for 6 weeks. Big Beatles fan, visited the studio on Abbey Road. You love Hooker's Breakfast, coffee and cigarette. You know, Gary Greenland, I told him to get on it and do some research. So kudos to you, Gary Greenland, for doing this research. I'm only partway through. Recorded with, you're raised in Grimsby and Ancaster, and that's our local connection tonight. We're going to hear a little bit more of the whole story. Recorded with Dan Lanois and Robbie Robertson. Influences across the board. We'll talk about some of those. And just, it goes on and on and on. Gordon Lightfoot. Probably more than we forgot about, you know, Chris Whitley. Wow. Bill, it's a pleasure to have you in the studio. A Life in Music. It occurred to me when we spoke the other day, you were very profound in your imagery when you were talking about music. And you were talking about the early days and the tunes that would come over the little AM radio in the kitchen on top of the fridge and how they would grab you. So I'm always interested when a guest comes in to ask them how music came into their life or how it's kind of profoundly affected them. And usually it starts with some of the earliest memories. So, you know, what's that come back to?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that you're digging up, hitting all those switches and triggers for me. I don't spend, you know, that much time thinking about it unless the circumstances I'm in. Meeting you, it was a great 2 hours at the cafe. Just nobody ever asked, like, really, how'd you get started, you know? So it was pretty inspirational. So I'm really happy to be here.
You spoke about, you know, and right off the bat, I told you what our mission statement was. Like we do music here, but we look at music as something as part of a much greater thing, about life force, about what it can do, its potential, its potential as a agent of change. And I spoke about the mental health record that we worked on last year, and talked about how they kind of connect in the artistic community. And you talked about the early days in, your parents' houses where there was music, they were musical, and, just like a lot of families late at night, there would be a bit of a jamboree that would go on. So, recount that for me, like some of those memories of how music kind of got thrust upon you even.
Oh yeah, I'll try. I mean, I know we're just, pretty pressed for time on this show. I'm trying to cram it all in. We had 2 hours, so I don't want to take too much time.
Oh, we take 2 hours all the time.
So yeah, for me, it's pretty. There's a word. Secluded.
Right.
I kind of really secluded childhood, and as I was saying, we moved like almost every year to a different place, a different area of Toronto, a lot of different areas. And wound up in one of the worst ones. So as a little kid, I was just really sequestered by my mom.
Yeah, and you were much younger than your siblings, right?
Well, yeah, I was born 10, 11 years after my brother and sister, and they were, they were taken away by the Children's Aid. I didn't mention that. And I was born into the household without them there. So I kind of got to meet my brother and my sister as guests, visitors to the house. And I'm like, who's this? I didn't really realize as I was a little kid that this pile of Christmas presents was from, my brother would show up out of the blue at Christmas time. And it's like, wow, because mom and dad could never afford to do that.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing. And since it's a music thing here, my very first album that I got for me was from my brother. It was, we didn't have anything to play it on, but I was just really impressed that I got one. I don't really remember how old I was, but there's the usual stuff, the toy soldiers and fort sets and stuff under the Christmas tree. But on the radio, there was the Chipmunks had I Just Want a Hula Hoop, and that record had just come out. I just want a hula hoop, I just loved the song. So I'd be kind of like singing along with the radio. So I guess they told my brother, So I opened this package up and wow, there's like my first album. It was the Chipmunks with that song on it, a Christmas record. And eventually, at some point, they got some little record player that you could sort of play this thing on, and I got to hear that and sing along with it, That was my introduction to putting a needle on a record for the first time.
Yeah, and just the way it could transport you, because obviously there's, and you spoke about being able to get lost in your own world if you were with your imagination playing games or cards or whatever it was, before you got your first guitar, before you discovered music, there's kind of a mindset that exists before the music enters it. And people don't realize that. They think it's kind of a process where you pick up an instrument and all of these things happen at once, but it's like teaching someone to be funny. You can't really do that. You can hone your craft, but I believe that musicians have what comes out of them, the music in them the whole time, obviously, and the instrument is just the way to get it out.
I'd agree to a point. I mean, there's a lot of musicians that just want to do it. It's out of interest. It's been my experience that people have a lot of different reasons to get into music, and it could be just occupation. What am I going to do now? For me, to a great degree, it was certainly turned into that. Well, for me, it was like a perfect storm. The circumstances were a perfect storm. And I think another thing I didn't mention, some point years ago before my mom passed away, there was a photograph. I found a photograph in a drawer, or somebody gave my folks a photograph of the Wilson brothers. And this is a recent memory for me, although I don't have the photograph anymore because the house is gone. that meant a lot to my understanding of where things came from for me musically. And the Wilson brothers were an actual group of guys that was my grandmother's, not my grandmother, a relative. It was maybe a sister of my grandmother or something. Some relative, Clara Wilson. And I'd heard about her, and I knew about a farm that she had. And it was like Chatham kind of area where my dad was born, sort of. Anyway, for me to see a photograph, one of those sepia tone photographs of, 7 or 8 guys doing the pose, playing guitar and mandolin and all this stuff, it was like, oh my, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea, because my dad was sort of a wannabe guitar player when I was 2 or 3, but he was, a raging alcoholic. And I remember my mom throwing his guitar down the basement stairs one night in a big Barney they were having. I didn't know what that was. I just, every night there was a fight. And I went down the basement stairs in Toronto somewhere, some slum we were living in, and I just saw this acoustic guitar all smashed to pieces. And I didn't know what it was. And I wasn't really listening to my dad then anyway. I was just trying to stay away. But he was trying to do the 1 finger, 2 finger C chord, I guess, I'm assuming. And she didn't like that he was doing that when he was drunk and being a jerk. So that was my first guitar experience, was to see one smashed at the bottom of the basement stairs in this hellhole in Toronto. Yeah. That was my first instrument visual.
Yeah.
Right? So from that, we go to my mom, who's from Newfoundland, St. John's. She only had a grade 5 education, and a beautiful person, beautiful woman. And she missed home. She got stuck with him in Toronto, moved to the mainland,
Yeah.
And, but in her huge extended family, which was ×2, by the way, because my grandmother passed away there. I never knew from that or met her. And my grandfather remarried. And now there's this other huge extended family that they found me in the last couple of years from my grandfather's second wife.
Correct.
So that was like amazing to me. So my mom's musical side was she played the accordion, but not really. She would just sort of try and sing the songs from her childhood, Newfoundland songs.
Yeah.
And kind of 1 finger, and she had the little buttons on the bass. They never really changed. It'd be like, in and out.
Yeah.
The bass notes would never change, but she would kind of play 2, 3 finger chords and melodies,
riffs,
sort of, kind of, and sing along. And so that was my musical bit from my mum. And I didn't know there was one from my dad.
Yeah, but they would have. And you got to understand the era for the people who are watching. This is kind of a really milieu of the 50s, kind of going into the 60s and the early 60s, from the greasers and the doo-wop and the race music, as they called it, and the certain R&B bands who would come through and where they would stop. And afterwards, there would be certain places, like this place was for a lot of times, where people would come back and music would continue to play throughout the night. So you were privy to that. You had like a couple occasions where you saw that these are professionals, or there is people whose job it is to make music, right?
Yeah, very, very true. And actually, as I was saying before the show started, like when we had that 2-hour coffee, it could have been a 2-week coffee. I enjoyed it so much, and I really love being here. I told you, you trigger a lot of memories. I don't really connect the dots, But even now, like just as we're bringing this up, I forgot about the Wilson brothers. I forgot about the guitar being smashed when I was 2 or 3 in the basement, etc. Now, what you just said was that at the time, like in the 50s. And I'm just thinking, for my mom and dad, the musical connection of what people were doing is actually from the 30s and the 40s, isn't it? My mom and dad met in the harbor in a cafe in Newfoundland during the bloody war.
Yeah.
Right? And he's on a Corvette destroyer escort. He's a really good-looking young guy. I mean, charismatic. He's really handsome. And he shows up in the cafe. My mom's just a young girl working in the cafe. Boom, I'm here, you know?
Yeah.
But that's what they did. That's what they did then. When we think of how does music connect, and what purpose does it have in keeping people together and bringing people together? Well, certainly in my family, I can only imagine the Wilson brothers around their houses and their front rooms now. I'm just thinking about it now. That's why I'm so fascinated about what am I doing here with you tonight? You know? So I'm kind of going back with these thoughts thinking, wow, it actually started then, like the 30s and the 40s. I'll zero in on wartime. But look what the world was going through then. I mean, really, like the atomic bomb and, you know, the Hitler and the submarines, and my dad's 17 years old and he's doing the North Atlantic in the wintertime on the Corvette escorts. And you just hear about that stuff. You go, I know somebody that did that. Well, here's the point is, I was born only 7 years. That's 7 years is nothing after that. So I was born into it. They were just going, shoo, right? Like, wow, you know, made it through that. So they'd be joyfully sitting around in Newfoundland in the little kitchen, right, with no heat and no money, going, oh man, let's sing this and let's make this song. And we made it, exactly. I was like, well, maybe we'll get a job now. Maybe things will look up for us in the world, and let's go to the mainland.
Yeah,
right?
and the move to Ontario, because that's where the jobs were, and that's for years. And jobs for me and jobs for you. You know, going down the road, it was famous.
I get all tingly thinking about this, you know. I think, wow, that like just how deep in the genetic roots that music is. It's really. And that's what we were talking about. For me, it's been the synchronicity of there's some sort of plug-in. I didn't really want to learn an instrument, and when I was really young, I didn't have the reasons. We didn't have a TV, for one thing. It's not like I was watching, you know, I want to do that.
Yeah.
It was, it was just really natural. They'd bring the singers, the country guys home from the Parkdale and the Gladstone Hotel in Toronto, like I was telling you, on Queen Street, you know, on the weekend. And then they'd be up all night with their Gibsons and their Martins, and I'd be on the couch like this, you know, while Mom's trying to play along with it. And they were polite, and they'd sing along and play along with my mom. And just some really great, great people. I wonder where they are today, kind of thing, you know? And so, as I was saying, it's just this osmosis for me. And the connecting dots through all of these records for my career has been, well, that sort of autistic childhood that I told you about. I felt, you know, like under my mom's apron, sort of protection against my dad, and she didn't want the Children's Aid to take me away also. Right? She said, well, I'm going to do this right this time, you know, you don't get him. I mean, literally, that's what it was about. You don't get him. So he never beat me, he just beat my mom, right? So I'm kind of like this. So there's all this kind of music around, sort of. The vibe of it was there. I thought, well, this is pretty neat stuff. So those moments for me, like you were saying, you know, playing with my toys and not talking to kids and all that. So we moved all the time. I couldn't really make any friends. There's this ingrained genetic thing I didn't know about until recently. But the perfect storm situation for me back then meant, but something better happen. There better be something here, or just I'm toast. You know, what am I going to do? Become a hoodlum, a gangster?
And you spoke of that and talking about people fall into this idyllic idea of what, you know, 50s and 60s were like in Canada or Toronto, but they were talking a major city. We're talking there's prostitution and thuggery, and there is like they don't understand the kind of bullying that happened back then, assisted, let alone like, you know, this was institutionalized. And you were talking about moving and being constantly in fear from these gangs and whatnot, and then you had was it an aunt who lived in Grimsby, and you'd come out on visits and see this, and I always heard, you know, I was born in Grimsby, but every time I came through it, I think of Neil Young, or like there's something about that kind of Canadian there's something about Grimsby. It's a beautiful little place, especially if you're coming from somewhere that isn't so.
A small world, that you're from there.
Yeah.
And my parents moved there in '67.
And that was, again, 1967. They call that the Summer of Love. Maybe not so much for some people, but let's kind of jump ahead a little bit to now. You're growing your hair, you're playing guitar, and you're a hippie. And what was it like to be a hippie in Grimsby, Ontario in 1967?
Well, you have to do a couple of shows on that. It was tough, but it was fun.
Yeah.
Because Grimsby, as you know, there was half of it was hippie and half of it was still living in the 40s, the farm boys and the kind of macho bit, But, it started to change through that year. I think just in that summer, you could see the change as like, well, we're not really getting anywhere as being greasers. Yeah, we're kind of ostracized. So it was, the movement was showing itself. For me, it was great musically because there's so much talent in Grimsby at the time.
And you're close to Hamilton, and Hamilton's always been a hotbed of music. It's
Unreal.
always been, and that must have been, you would go into Hamilton, I would imagine, to see music from time to time. Yeah,
I had to hitchhike down Highway 8 or take a bus, the bus kind of thing. Well, there's a city not far from here. Wow, I didn't know. I guess I'll go check out Hamilton because it's closer than Toronto. Mm-hmm. And got to meet people. Pretty amazing. And
one of those people, we're gonna click into our first video. We got some videos, some really cool stuff. One of them that you got to see for the first time tonight, since it got recorded in 1991, blows my mind. But Mr. Ian Thomas and a great Canadian act called The Boomers. We're gonna start off. We're gonna play this one. It's You Gotta Know. Any stories about the Boomers? A quick one you want to lay on us before we play a video?
There's, they're all clean.
Yeah.
So nothing dramatic here. Stories. In Grimsby, some of the first friends that I met included Steve Hogg, who's amazing talent, just amazing musician, singer-songwriter, and just like eons ahead of me. So he went on to be Ian Thomas's bass player. So he was in Ian Thomas's band way back then. He came up with the hook line for Painted Ladies. Doom, ba-doom, boom, boom, ba-doom, boom, boom, ba-doom, boom, diddly-diddly. So that's Stephen Hogg. So he was like one of the sort of peer people in Grimsby at the time that was like, wow, this guy's making records and traveling around, and I'm still sleeping in the park. So through Steve, I got to meet Ian Thomas, basically. And it was years later, after I sort of started doing some stuff, Ian gave me a try. So I guess that's 20 years later, 25 years later, maybe later, And so I did an Ian Thomas album. It was another Ian Thomas attempt at having a single, and we went to England. It was really nice, and did that record. And I think it's something going on with his record company. He just wanted to try something different, so he had this concept of, gee, what if it was more like a band, and not like Ian Thomas, It's like Sting leaves the Police. It's like, now I'm Sting. Well, Ian's like, well, I'm going to try and do something as Ian Thomas, the singer-songwriter. But then he went back to this band concept. So that's how the Boomers came out of that. And did 4 albums. But it was mostly a recording band. We just get together and make a record, and okay, I gotta go, Yeah. And people had their own lives, everybody's busy. And some German guy came, as I recall, to Canada, and he was like rifling through some records in some record store to take back to Germany or something, and he took a Boomers first CD, and he was just playing a bunch of stuff on a German radio one night, and all these people were phoning in. I said, oh, play that, that song that that you played. So he kept getting all these requests, and the next thing you know, we had a #1 hit single across Germany and surrounding areas. So Ian's phoning everybody, like I'm in New Orleans with Barb, and Peter and Rick are busy doing their stuff in Toronto. I was like, guys, we got, you won't believe this, but so he pulled everybody together in Toronto for rehearsals, and we had to zoom off.
Just before the internet, right? Now with the internet, you can send something to Germany and it might take off. But this was, and again, you know, what are the chances if you hadn't picked that row? It's like the smallest things make the biggest differences sometimes, right?
And I'm glad you said that. Now, before we cut to break, I want to say something. On my cafe before I came tonight, I thought, well, what are we going to talk about? What we're going to zero in on? I don't have any clue where this is going. But I want to say through all of this, through my whole life and the synchronicities and the people that I've met, worked with, and been fortunate enough to be friends or not with, it's the small things that are the biggest importance to me in the people that I've met. And I could talk for the rest of my life about circumstances and situations and the value in that. And the big things about people are not so impressive to me anymore. And I'll be 64 in March, so I've had like yachts and vintage car collections and guitars and amps and travel the world and houses and all that stuff. But mostly I've had a way of finding my peace of mind, which I feel now I have that, because I can look back and say, it doesn't really matter how big you think you are. The don't you know who I think I am syndrome, right? I'm not too impressed with that anymore. If you haven't figured that out by now, more power to you, and I hope you've got a good load in the bank to see you through. And it's the people that did the small things and that appreciate the small things inside themselves, that have really given of themselves, even if they're larger than life people that recognize the small things in people like me, because I don't have much to offer. I really don't. It's just, I'm really going to try for you, because I know how important it is to make a living for you and all the other players on the records. Everybody's just struggling to make a living, right? So it's that small appreciation of what people can really bring from inside. The small things become really big. And that's what we have speakers and stereo systems for, is to make those small magic moments of synchronicity and special moments from each heart, from each heartbeat in a person, especially the person that putting their ass on the line, writing those lyrics for the world to see. It's the macrocosmic, microcosmic, amazing thing of music to me. So I wanted to point that out. I could tell you some beautiful things about the really small things that amazingly big people have done and said. For a guy like me, it's what makes it worthwhile to keep going.
I'm inspired. I'm inspired this evening. Got the Boomers. You got to know right here at barbershoppodcast.com.
Don't apply a single thing you learn, and then you wonder why it's still the same. gotta know this isn't working. You gotta know this isn't working. You gotta know I can't relax. You gotta know I can't relax. You gotta know I need some distance. You gotta know I need some distance. I want you up for my back. I want you up for my back. So I gotta tell you this ain't working. I gotta tell you this ain't working. In case you misunderstood. In case you misunderstood. Well, you'll be waving, I'll be walking. You'll be waving, I'll be walking. My life should be so good. My life should be so good. You gotta know, you gotta know, you gotta know, you gotta know. I'm so sorry I've hurt your feelings with everything I've had to say. I could have done it behind your back in that civilized way. Maybe if someone had said something sooner instead of avoiding the scene. But then again, people seldom change from everything they've been. You gotta know this isn't working. You gotta know this isn't working. You gotta know I can't relax. You gotta know I can't relax. You gotta know I need some distance. You gotta know I need some distance. I want you up for my back. I want you up for my back. So I gotta tell you this ain't working. I gotta tell you this ain't working. In case you misunderstood. In case you misunderstood. You'll be waving, I'll be walking. You'll be waving, I'll be walking. My life should be so good. My life should be so good. Oh, you gotta know, you gotta know, you gotta know, you gotta know. You gotta know.
All right, that's the Boomers' great Hamilton connection. Ian Thomas, band, and huge in Germany, bigger than the Hoff. That's what I hear. All right, we're going to give a big shout out to our sponsor, HamiltonArtists.ca. They're at 1141 Main Street East at Balmoral in Hamilton. That's just east of the Delta. You reach them at 289-396-1653 or at HamiltonArtists.ca. And they print anything on anything. That's not just what they say, it's what they do. Promote, market your business, T-shirts, mugs, buttons, banners, anything. They do vinyl wraps. They can do cars. They can do your business. They can do the tables, the doors. Don't let your imagination stand in the way. They will help you. They've got an online gallery where you can load up your cart. You go in and they've got candles, they've got custom wear, you name it. HamiltonArtists.ca, great friend, Barbershop Podcast. We got Bill Dillon on the show tonight. He's done so much for so long. He's sharing so much of what's real and what we kind of hark back at time and time. And I heard a great quote, because I get frustrated in this business sometimes. I hear that, you know, people will let you down and the music business will let you down, but music won't let you down. Yeah. I mean, it's and to me, I noticed that when I'm going through a bad spell, I haven't been listening to music, and I will find that I'll be watching or reading, but it's like it may have like 2 days gone by or 3 days, and I haven't listened to music. Speak a little bit to what you feel to be the therapeutic effect of music, and do you feel it's appreciated, or it was maybe revered a bit more than it is today? How do you feel about the almost social political aspect of music and its importance?
Oh,
because
yikes.
I get a bit pissed off because I think it's been hoarded out and dumbed out, and it hasn't been maintained and supported to the level that it needs to be. It's seen as the resource that it is, and I don't think enough people have fiercely defended it, and people too quickly become proprietary and take the money and run and don't have the reverence for it. So you've been through it. You've seen so many things, the up and down. You were telling me you were sitting on a couch in New York with Paul Simon and Edie Brickell and who was playing piano in the apartment.
Oh, at
Alan
Toussaint's studio in New Orleans.
In New Orleans. Okay, I thought it was New York, but in those magic moments when you almost want to give yourself a slap, you say, like, these people rise to a certain state because, like, why do people become demigods in the music industry? So many of us don't see that world, and yet you got to walk amongst those people that many of us see as giants, but I'm see once you got to know them, they're just like me and you. They're people. Or are you, because you're so coveted as a studio guy, do not often get to see that you're just utilized for your black art?
And there's such a, every time you drive over the Burlington Skyway, how often do we think about the guys that worked at Stelco that, made the steel and, the shift work and the stupid working conditions to make the steel to put that, you're just driving over the Burlington Skyway. It's, I think everything in life that has value has come from people that value something in life, and the guy making the steel and putting the rollers on that truck and driving the truck, down around Burlington Street, it's not really thinking about, by golly, someday I'm going to be thought of, right? When thousands of people drive over the Skyway. I'm being kind of flippant right now, I know that, but when people start out being kind of nobody, Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel and Peter Gabriel and John Lennon and George Harrison and Paul McCartney, it's like, it doesn't matter who it is unless you get thrown into it through your family, born into it or something. Everybody's got their story of, gee, I love music and I have all of these ideas for songs and I have a voice, I can sing. It wasn't just given to them. Everybody's had a rough go of it because it's been rough. You had the sharks of the music business at the time, right? There's been nothing ever written about the graciousness of the music business. Nobody ever says anything great about a record company in the 40s, 50s, or 60s. I don't remember reading anything about it. But Paul and Art were born into having to work their deal out, and they don't know if they're going to have a hit song on the radio. Or the Beatles, they would be driving, Paul and Art Garfunkel and John and Paul. Both of them in print have said, well, we were driving along in our car, and I said, well, we're going to have, or they hear themselves on the radio and go, oh my God, we're on the radio. And it just works from there. But in the meantime, they're out doing coffee shops or bars or Hamburg or New York. It's everybody's working. So by the time you get to some certain stature, you've already worked your brains out and sacrificed your nervous system to get there. And then you've got to, you have to sort of keep going. It's like, what do you do now? What's your next move? Right? So to talk about the effect that, as you were saying, not to rephrase what you're saying, but when people listen to music now, there's not quite the same circumstances as there were back then. The world is just as crummy now as it was then. And it's just as crummy then as it is now in a lot of ways. It's just then it was Khrushchev and now it's Putin. Then it was so-and-so and now it's, Donald Trump. So we're all just trying to survive, and the industry's gone. It's changed. Technology has changed everything, but it was the same back then. You had little records, and then you had tapes, and you had cassettes, and then you had your CDs, and that's going. So it's not that music is any less important to people, but there's a lot more people out there now, and frankly, the Beatles kicked the doors open for everybody to be singers, songwriters, and musicians as well. Is that not the case?
Yeah, and it's pretty remarkable because, like most guys, I fell into them at that age. When you started discovering music, I couldn't help but to. And everything else kind of remains as almost like a snapshot in my mind of the time and place. And yet, it doesn't matter how many times I hear the Beatles. I almost feel like it's the first time I've heard that song. I get that same feeling again. It doesn't pigeonhole itself in any easy way. And I almost like cynically understood this going in and was looking not to lionize them unjustly for any other reason than they really kind of had the ability to grab you and keep you. And I think you were the one who mentioned the other day, it's like the secret, the magic about the Beatles is you can hear their personalities in their voice when they're.
I said that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I was pulling your leg.
You, perhaps, but it's like there's a nuance that it's in
Isn't
there.
that
And
true?
you were saying is if it's a Hermits or Mickey Dolenz or someone else, not Mickey Dolenz, it'd be Mickey, sure, and or Peter Tork or anyone singing who is a 60s singer, capable 60s singer, it wouldn't, with those same arrangements, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, it'd be.
And athletically, the voices are good. You said Paul's still stands up as one of the best rock and roll music voices of all time, but it's the combination and it's kind of the truth that's in it. No?
Absolutely. I mean, how many bands would you go and see if there was nobody singing?
Yeah.
Where would the Beach Boys be as a band if nobody was singing? I mean, everybody knows that, the most direct connection with a live audience or a recording audience, the most direct one with the person is the singer. It's just kind of the way it's always been.
And speaking of that, as a segue, Edie Brickell and 10,000 Maniacs, she kind of grabbed it in an era, and I was in my late 20s, mid-late 20s, and I was also very compelled by her as an artist. Her voice, her technique, her style, the arrangements that were kind of wrapped around her. How did you meet Edie Brickell? How were you invited into those sessions?
That's a good question.
I don't remember. It was the
80s. I'll make something up.
All right, we're going to go to a video, and Bill will remember right here, 10,000 Maniacs, Don't Talk from the Unplugged Session, barbershoppodcast.com.
Don't talk, I'll listen. Don't talk, you
was a huge triple rotation. That unplugged craze in the 90s went nuts, and you got to sit there on stage and be a part of it, part of so many moments in history. The saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. True?
Very much.
Yeah. It's and I found that perseverance in this business for me is that you still get, you types and you still deal with it, but you kind of have to wear a good chunk of your heart on your sleeve in this business, no matter what, you're doing. And I believe if you're a roadie, it's the same thing. If you did a spreadsheet, you wouldn't do it. And so right off the bat, you're dealing with a pretty good bunch of people, heart, soul-wise. Within that, of course, you still get the petty jealousies and you get the backstabbing and whatnot. But to be able to get the call year after year, you must have done something right. Have you done any kind of examination as to what makes you, a guitar player of choice? Why do singer-songwriters look to you as the person they want to play on their music?
Well, I could talk about it, I suppose, but really my gut reaction response would be I'm the last person to know, really. I just hope that it's because I'm going to bring something to the song, I can relate to the song. And
relationships, I would imagine, that you've impressed, in the past, you haven't disappointed. Your work stands for itself. And you said that people create differently. Some people, it comes in and flourishes, and you're somewhat meticulous about the way you work at it. You examine, I guess as a guitar player, a bit of navel gazing, where you have to kind of say, I see it. There's a great quote about Lenny Breau that he saw things in shapes and colors. And people play their minds. Have you kind of got an idea of where you fit in all of that?
I think from my childhood, I was brought up in a home where I couldn't develop mentally. I had a mother who was typically spiritually deep, loving mom, and as I mentioned to everyone, that she was, you don't get him, so she was super protective of me. And I had a dad who was pretty uneducated, good-looking, kind of megalomaniac, but he didn't have anything going for himself.
No, I'm probably pretty threatened by you because you were taking the love of someone he coveted, right? I mean, that's pretty common.
Well, I think he was pretty bitter at just the situation he got into after the war. He's a raging alcoholic 24/7. His first two kids have been taken away by the Children's Aid, and he was violent, and he's a pretty tough guy, and he just was a laborer, right? So I had that kind of personality on this side, right? And the other personality on the other side. So from the day I was born, I got to see both ends of the spectrum. It's like, here is somebody that wants to feel, but they don't know how. Now, here's somebody that feels, and they don't know how to think except common sense, all right? So there's the basics of life are in my mom, and the basics of where things can go wrong are in my dad. I think anything, even talking to you now, like at this very moment, I'm a Pisces, and it's been referred to as the dustbin of the zodiac, but it's the fish going this way. I've got both.
I am too. Yeah.
Are you Pisces too?
So I was born on the 17th. When were you born on?
The 13th. So you know what I'm saying, right?
I totally know what
There's that mind, body, the left brain, right brain is one way of looking at it, but then there's the heart, mind, and I was born into that. So if I'm sitting in front of somebody that I'm meeting and it's in the music business, they kind of have a sort of feel what kind of...
They call it mutable within the sign.
Yeah.
That you're able to kind of form what you're feeling.
And I guess this could segue into, I'm not really very good at what I do. All right, so a lot of players have come and gone on a lot of these artists' records, actually, you know, and they get the call because they're really good at, oh, so-and-so is really good at this, and he's always great at that and great at that. And sometimes I've said, you know, I got an idea for this track, this song here that, on guitar. I said, you know, I know a guy that could do this idea like really, really well. But we should call him and get him for this part of the song. And, you know, somebody like Robbie would say, well, you try it, Bill. You know, it's okay, you try it. You give it a try. I was like, really? Well, I can't really do that, you know. There's been a lot of circumstances like that. I'm not very good. I'm not really very good at all. I stopped practicing when I was 15 and started working. But I wanted to get better and played too many instruments, and I also wasted a lot of time. Because as a kid, it came really easy. It came really easy. It wasn't really that hard to play Beatles songs and figure out the songs were kind of simple then, you know. I didn't have to learn Van Halen hammer-ons to play in a bar when I was 15. You know, I didn't. And, you know, there was no Lenny Bro stuff to try and figure out, you know. So it's really kind of easy, the basic harmonies and, you know, basic guitar, basic bass and all that stuff, you know. So I think when I meet people, it's like, well, Bill's not, you know, he's good, I guess he's good for the idea, for the song, maybe. And where I make up for it is possibly that, you know, just that emotional dichotomy is kind of get more in it. Like when you say, wear your heart on your sleeve, because I can't really do anything else, you know. And if they're artists, and they're wearing their heart on their sleeve, there's that sort of connection there too. So, well, at least Bill sort of gets this emotionally, maybe. And maybe I was thinking this fantastic rock solo or something, but you know, maybe this is better to just kind of be a little more gentle about it. And just keep in mind too, that I've kind of brought in on records where they're pretty darn good guitar players as well. I mean, Robbie's kind of no slouch. Dan Lanois, no slouch. And Paul Simon, and they're all already really great at what they do. So, what's the point in me trying to be like, you know, get out of the way, I'll show you how this is done. You know, it was, I'll tell you straight up, even in the 60s, in those bands, I never wanted to be the lead player. There's always somebody, you know, who's really great and deserving of being it, like, you know, the great Bernie LaBarge in Toronto. He says, like, I'd just as soon have him go up and do all that stuff, or Gord Honeyman, you know, who I love. You know, he's just great, you know, good. You do that, you know. I'm really happy to be doing, like, the support you stuff, you know, the Rickenbacker 12-string or the sustained guitar bits are good. I'm always looking for something else that can, the other part of the band. And I only played solos and licks and stuff because I had to do it at some point. But I couldn't do what people are doing now, you know?
Well, thank God for that. I mean, no, it's because you are what you are as an individual. And someone like Dan Lanois, you know, we're very close to Grand Avenue Studio here, and he was someone who believed in what he did, and there were people who wouldn't get what he would do, and what he was able to do unapologetically was what you spoke of, that emotion and getting that feel and that texture and having it soaked into the music of that kind of Brian Eno school of production, and to the point when, you know, now he is regarded for the artist, the true artist he is, the musician he is. We're gonna play a video of his. Do you have a little Dan Lanois story you can do off the top of your head, or you want a bit to think about it?
Well, I think this.
We're going to do The Messenger.
The Messenger. I think this clip is. I wasn't supposed to be on that thing. This was supposed to be his bass player, Daryl Johnson, and he had the ticket all paid for and everything to get on the plane, and they wanted to make sure he actually went to the gig. There was supposed to be Dan and Daryl, and typically Daryl said, yeah, okay, I got my ticket, and he goes to the airport, so the story goes, but he didn't get on the plane. He went off and did something else, so Dan was left holding the Well, I was asked by an amazing artist, singer-songwriter who's married to the sister of Madonna. His name is Joe Henry, and he's an amazing, amazing songwriter in the States. He's truly amazing. I met him at Kingsway in New Orleans, and he had called me and asked me to eventually to work on his next record. And I was like, wow. To me, Joe Henry's like Bob Dylan. I mean, he's just unbelievably eloquent man, deep, spiritually deep man. Facebook friends. I just love looking at his posts and reading them. It's just, wow. I can't even think like that, let alone write like that in his Facebook posts, So he asked me to do his record. And I said, wow, great, I'm there. Well, the night before I'm supposed to start the record with Joe Henry, I got a call from Dan Lanois saying, okay, Bill, so I need you to come to Toronto and do much music with me. But Dan, I'm starting with Joe Henry tomorrow. I was like, well, I really need you to come and do this. Well, Joe Henry's wife, Madonna's sister, was Dan Lanois' manager. so they're
Happy
trying
coincidence,
to, there's sort of, what do you call it, conflict of interest in a 12-hour period. For me, I was like, what am I supposed to do? So I talked to Joe Henry, and I said, well, Dan is insisting that he needs me to come and do this thing in Toronto. And he said, well, I guess if you got to do it, I understand, but, I'm going to miss you on the record. It's like, well, so I was really torn. But Dan has done everything for me. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Dan Lanois. It's kind of, we go way back to like when we were 18. He got me all that work at Grant Avenue for 10 years, and he trusted in me and kind of nurtured me and showed me everything, and, while I'm doing my own bit too. And then, as I told you, he's solely responsible for kind of getting me out of that into, let's go make a record together with Robbie. It was my first real international record, So how could I say no to Dan if he needs, we toured together, we've recorded together, we've lived together and kind of grew up together. We're the same age, and I understand, So it's a loyalty thing. And Joe was cool about it. He went on to make a bloody great record again anyway. It's not like for lack of me being there, It's just, okay, go do the thing with Dan. So I was, wondering if I'm supposed to be playing bass parts, because it's just Dan on guitar. How can I bring the most to it, So I tried a bass on a couple of songs, 2 new songs I didn't do. And I said, just play guitar. So I think the first song or two on Much Music, I was trying to play bass, so I was watching Dan's hands the whole time, because I don't know the songs. So then we switched to guitar, and I just grabbed my acoustic, and I was just playing. You can see me just watching Dan's hands and following along on the songs. Like, okay, I'm here. They got the visa and the immigration and all the back and forth from New Orleans to Canada, right? So it kind of just threw me in the chair, and it was just, I'm there. I'm just there.
Well,
so that's what this is.
Yeah, you don't normally
there.
get a story that good about something you're about to see right here. The
Thanks,
Messenger.
Daryl.
Thank you, Daryl. Yeah. BarbershopPodcast.com.
Got a letter from a messenger. I read it when it came. It said that you were wanted. You were bound and chained. You had loved and you were handled. You were poison, you were pain. Oh no, oh no. You were naked, you were shame. You could almost touch heaven right there in front of you. Liberty just slipped away. much work to do. Oh, the door that closes tightly is a door that can swing wide. Oh no, oh no, not expecting to collide. For a minute I let my guard down, not afraid to be found out. Completely forgotten what our fears are all about. Oh no, oh no, there's no need to be without. There's a chance that I will take it. This desire I can't kill. Take my heart, please don't break it. I will crawl to your foothill. I'm frightened, but I'm coming. Please, baby, please lay still. Oh no, oh no, not coming for the kill. Oh no, oh no, not coming for the kill. Oh no, oh no, not coming for the kill.
That's The Messenger, a little something from Hamilton's own Dan Lanois, responsible for so many people being in music, staying in music, exposing so much talent that's in this town to the world, and truly having a global reach was a tougher gig. The internet allows you to, like right now, we've got people in Australia watching this show, right? And yeah, it's cool. Hey, Carolina. And quickly that's taken for granted, where in the day of having to, make this record and then shop this record and go out and do this record and farm this record and get the A&R and get the publicity and then get the contract and then quite a process. Yeah, I mean, and the money involved, the outlay was incredible.
Phenomenal.
But at the same time, there was a thriving live music scene.
There was a promise of a return.
Yeah,
A promise of a return. I mean, if you had a successful album, look what happened back then. You become the demigods and the people that we love, and the cream rose to the top as well as the curds. But
Yeah.
Look at the people we love and admire now. It was because there was a return, and those finances allowed the truly wonderful ones and the creative ones to. That's where the Beatles are the whole story right there.
Yeah.
They just kept going and going and going and going and going and giving us, and they got better every day, didn't they? I mean,
They did.
And it was the return that allowed them to do that. And the same with Robbie. It was kind of, he had all those years with the band, and they all made their money. And Robbie only put out a record just to put a record out. It's not like he needed the money, but it was the return from the '60s. All that songwriting that allowed him he was retired then,
Yeah.
The Beatles retired. Holy cow. John was retired from the music business at, 30?
Yeah.
Really? They just put a record out because they said,
Yeah,
let's put a record out.
Yeah. And then even Double Fantasy was,
So,
9
so at
years.
that time, like all the struggle, there was kind of a return that really made it worthwhile. And in the meantime, Kevin, as we know, to get there, you could sort of feed yourself, and you could sort of have a family, or at least a roof over your head, and buy a cheap car, and you could play live, So it's just amazing how things have changed, huh? I mean, I was at 15 years old playing bass in a country band, I was 15. I wasn't even legally allowed to be on the stage, as I told you the other day. I was bringing home, like actually bringing home more money in cash than my dad was after working 8 hours a day.
How much was that? I want to put this in perspective for the people who maybe enjoy the show or people who see live music. You know, I'm trying to build the live music scene and bring back what was there. I want to compare to what a player could expect to take home in those days and what a case of beer cost versus what a player can expect to take home today and what a case of beer costs. So tell me. I
was feeling pretty good till you brought that up.
Yeah.
Just look it up, will you?
Exactly how old you are.
All I know, it was, you know, it was more than my dad was making. He was just a laborer, you know, at CNR. But I just remember being able to buy all these guitars and drink coffee and buy cigarettes and not really have to worry so much and have, you know, an apartment eventually. And it was between $5,000 and $1,000 a week, you know, depending on how much you wanted to work. In the early days for me, there was like the band that would be like doing clubs, but I was in this band called Eleanor Fox, which is half Hamilton and half Toronto guys, you know, with Gord Honeyman, Brian LeBlanc, Garnet Todd, and myself. And guys I met in Hamilton, and then I just answered an ad in Toronto. I met Gord and Brian. But they could really sing. They're just two really amazing voices, and I was kind of like the invisible voice third. I did a couple of solo songs, you know. And so we did a lot of high schools. Do you remember the high school dances in Grimsby? Yep. Well, in the 60s, you know, in 67, they were just like dying for music, live music. And they had, Grimsby High School had a fair budget, right, for their high school dances. And there's, you know, Winona and Beamsville and Grimsby and, you know, all the high school dances were a really big thing. They had all these reasons to have a dance, events and stuff. Well, they'd pay us pretty darn good. We're just a 4-piece band, you know, and we had our own equipment, and we'd bring the equipment and set it all up. We didn't have mixing guys to pay. We'd do it all on stage, and, you know, so if we got a couple of grand, we got $500 that night, right? Yeah. But then we're doing that night, like maybe that night, we didn't play the club that week, right? So if you're playing the club, you're making $500 or $600 a week playing a club, and you're working every week. And you might do 2 or 3 high school dances, maybe more that month, right? So for a single guy, he's just a kid, that was quite a bit of money.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
You know, and today, I should be working, Kevin. I shouldn't be sitting here. Yeah. And that's the crime of the century, is that after all of that, and then all these records and videos you're showing, I'm looking at my past, and I should be out working. I should be, you know, recording somewhere.
Absolutely.
So then I just look at it, well, what's the point? I'm going to have to pay $50 to go and play with somebody, and I can't get over the border.
Yeah. Yeah, and so here you are in Canada, where, you know, you're lucky to get $350 for an amazing 4-piece band that plays 3 full sets till 2 in the morning, you know, and then after their expenses, they've got $50 each, you know, to show for it. Yeah. And, you know, hopefully somehow people will realize how important it is. They'll support it. They'll start throwing themselves in. We can start making deals, take a chunk of the bar. I don't know. I don't care. But it's like you are, you know, such an inspiration to have in here on so many levels.
And it is for me too.
Yeah, thank you so
much. And back in the 60s, as a result of the people that I liked, that I got along with as kids, you know, it was people that were songwriters. Even then, I mean, Gord Honeyman and Brian LeBlanc and, you know, Dan Lanois, we all kind of like really loved, as you did, as everybody did then, we really loved the artists that we were listening to. And the lyrics meant so much, and the singing and the lyrics meant so much to all of us then. That was what kept you going through. It's like, you're on the road, it's worth it, because you get to sing those lyrics and play those things. You get paid. You make records with these people. And back then, what I could do, what I like to do with them, we shared the same taste in music, which is leading up to this next show, you see. And for me, it was the Beatles, the Byrds, and the Lovin' Spoonful. You know, all these people I got to work with and meet and record with, or not, you know, 25, 35 years later. That's the synchronicity for me. And, you know, I started experimenting, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, in '67. And, you know, we did stuff then, right? And just because, you know, it might help you break through the fog of your childhood, and, you know, life was going pretty quickly in '67. The world was seriously changing. I see it. For me, I just wanted to catch up, get away from underneath my mom's apron, and it's like, what's wrong with me? I gotta find out what's wrong with me. So that's why I experimented. And along the way, I'd be doing that at night with the headphones on. And I'd be listening to the Beatles' voices and the lyrics. And I'd be listening to the Byrds. And the band was #1 for me for lyrics at the time. That's why I loved Robbie so much. I mean, they're really bloody heavy lyrics, you know, and Bob Dylan. They don't really mean what they mean. And I wondered about that. Oh, it's just a song about so-and-so. I was like, no, it ain't. No, it's not. I don't believe that. It's cryptic. Just like Bob Dylan. It's well, I'm just saying it, but it's also
just a song and dance,
it's
man.
up to
That's
you.
what he'd
That's
say.
right. It's up to you how deeply you want to take it. And the thing is that they're so amazing at this craft of words that it can mean whatever to you. At face value, it means this, that deeply, and personally to you, it can mean this deeply. It's like that double-edged sword. That's what makes a great lyric great. It can take you where you want to go, or not even need to go, you see. So when the Byrds were doing all those Dylan tunes, they were doing it a la Beatles.
Your two worlds coming together.
That's it, you know. So a song like My Back Pages, you know, is that beautiful harmony and that beautiful pure 12-string solo, very simple, and I can listen to that forever. But it's the lyrics, you know. I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now. It's just an amazing thing. So back then, on those high school dances and the clubs, we were actually doing what we loved, were those bands and covering those songs, because we didn't have a record. This we're just doing, making a living and honing our craft, hoping that we would maybe have that break to make a record. And it's like, whoa, we'll do our own songs. Well, I'm not writing. What am I going to do? So I would sing the Lovin' Spoonful stuff, and I would sing the Byrds tunes. So we always did 8 Miles High. We always did Turn, 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 and My Back Pages, etc. So these were staples of my career, like on a stage in front of the bar people and high school dances. Then we got into the Moody Blues and all that stuff, you know. Beautiful stuff. So you go from 15 and 16 years old, just struggling to get by. There's this connection, for me personally, to the Byrds, Roger McGuinn, John Sebastian of the Lovin' Spoonful, Robbie Robertson of the band, and I have to say, when All Things Pass, George Harrison's first solo album came out, that's the album that changed my life. I mean, that literally, I'm saying, you know, to Australia, that's the album that literally changed my life. As I realized that this is where you can go when you're done with Hard Day's Night, you know. And there's songs and the production and George and the lyrics on that album and some experimenting. It's what turned the tide for me, literally. I went, wow, you know, it just took me finally inside somewhere where I felt comfortable. Robbie took me there with a rusty razor blade. George Harrison put the Band-Aid on it, put his arm around our shoulders and said, it's okay, you know, come this way. It doesn't have to be that brutal. So there's that double-edged sword. There's both fish again, you know, and this is all in 1 or 2, 3 years, right? these are all the people I got to meet. Paul Simon and George, Robbie, John Sebastian. I actually got to meet these people with that synchronicity in life. There's a bigger synchronicity in my life than we've touched on.
Yes.
And I could talk for hours about that. But I'm saying, I believe, because I know. I know. It's not a belief. I believe because I know from experience that this synchronicity, we're touching on music pulling people together. I know that it's bigger than that. And that's what we have to trust in. And for me, all of these records and all these experiences, or all the people, you know, are tied together. Sarah McLachlan, is like, you know, Dan Lanois met Pierre Marchand, you know, they're friends. So Pierre phoned me to do a Sarah McLachlan record or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, right? That snowballed, right? It's connections. And Robbie, good Lord. I mean, one day I'm, oh my God, it's Robbie Robertson the first day, you know, his acoustic guitar is like, yikes. Yeah. And the next day I'm hanging out in a suite watching the sun come up on the Mediterranean and in San Remo, Italy, and with George Harrison sitting beside me because they were friends back in the 60s for the same reason. Yeah. They loved him, he loved them, and I'm sitting there, you know, hanging out with George. And we talked. We talked about this, you know, enough. You know, what it's like to look in George Harrison's big brown eyes when it's just you and him sitting on the edge of the bed all by yourselves. I mean, I was just 30 years ago. I mean, the last time I saw George, it was at Maple Leaf Gardens. He was in the Beatles, you know? So that's the synchronicities. I can't think of an artist or a situation in my life where that hasn't been what's at play. And that brings us to this next thing that you found for me tonight. I've never seen.
And I'm going to take the story from here because we were asking you what, you know, some of the things, and you're like, oh my God, there's so many, and I don't know what's up there. So you started naming a few of them, and you said, I played a great festival in Spain, a Guitar Legends Festival in 1991, and Bruce Hornsby was playing the piano, and I got to be a bird. And I'm like, what? He goes, no, I got to actually play with Roger McGuinn and the Birds.
Amazing, eh?
And I dug it up, and your eyes lit up. You go, I have never seen this video in my entire life. And I said, how did you pull that off? And you said, I just sat in and didn't move. You know, Robbie went off and he came on and he went to play, and I said to him, hey, you know, I know all of Crosby's parts, and you had the nuts to say, you know, this is something that synchronicity is going to work, but yeah, I'm going to push it into the ring, and and here it is, right here, barbershoppodcast.com.
Here's one of my favorite songs written by Pete Seeger. It's called Turn, Turn, Turn. everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. Everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to end, a time to slow, a time for love, a time for hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. Gracias. Thank you. This next song is about an airplane ride over to England. It's called 8 Miles High.
I
Wow is right, eh? You get to play with the
Yikes.
birds. Fantastic. All right, Bill Dillon is our guest. Yeah, Life in Music and a musical life. And as I said, life lessons, a treasure box of life lessons with a fantastic soundtrack, discovering music and yourself within it. Yeah, different parts of yourself that you didn't know. Talking about going outside of your comfort zone. And it's almost like a sixth sense. Okay, Ryan. All right, I am not going to talk until I give a shout out to our sponsors.
I remember that.
I'm so sorry. Rebecca and Scott, two of the greatest people I know. They run the best record store in Hamilton, Ontario. It is called Revolution Records. It's at 166 Ottawa Street North between Roxborough and Cannon in Hamilton. They've only been open a few months, but you go in there, you're going to love it. They have got over 25 years of experience in that business, all formats, lots and lots of vinyl, 45s, old stuff, signed stuff. Go in there. If you love music as much as we do, go take a spin over to Revolution Records. If you love movies, make Revolution Records a must-see. Go in there. They're open 7 days a week. From the most popular music to underground, they've got connections. So if you're looking for it, they're going to find it for you.
Hey,
And
Kevin,
yeah,
if they'll do that, if I say they're great too, will they give me a copy of Ian Thornley's new album?
I think they could probably dig for something like that. Revolution Records, Bill Dillon loves them. They love Bill Dillon.
And I love Ian Thornley.
And Ian Thornley, and I do, and Ryan does.
Absolutely love Ian Thornley.
And it's like he is one of the greatest, Canadian gifts, I tell you.
I totally agree.
It's like, he is.
I idolize the man.
Man, that's,
me too.
so
Really?
it's rarely
Oh,
that
big
we all
time.
agree on everything, but I mean, it's like you want something wicked.
My iPhone is full of Thornley, his solo album, and Big Rack. That's all that's on my iPhone.
Yeah. And the one you played with just him in a hotel room with an acoustic guitar, just like mine, it's just the way he played and sang the minimalist.
He's coming to
production.
Hamilton the 15th.
The 15th, that's 5 days before your big show. All right.
Have you finished with your sponsors?
Finished with the sponsors. Yeah, Revolution Records. Go check them out. 166 Ottawa Street North. They are fantastico. All right, Bill Dillon is in here, and he's going to be at This Ain't Hollywood on Sunday, December 20th. And that is going to be Friends of Bill Dillon. That is, I'm trying to load up the list of who's going to be there. Maybe you off the top of your head. I know you don't want to leave anybody out. Come on, Lou, update your page. Go to This Ain't Hollywood on the 20th of, we're going to put it on there. There's going to be a link to it when you check this page out. It'll probably be sold out. Ian's going to be there. I know that much.
We hope, yeah.
And it's not to be missed. Anyway, that's the 20th of December, which is a Sunday. Friends of Bill Dillon at This Ain't Hollywood, 7 p.m. I think it's a big show. There's a huge list of top flight guests, and you're not going to want to miss it. Talking about music, talking about life, talking about synergy, and talking about serendipity and those moments of the smallest things in the biggest things, talking about why we do it. I'm not really sure too much on where it's going to go. I've mentioned this and I've said it before. I believe we're starting to look at music more as an essential, more like we look at food, and that it's not just something that's to be packaged in a convenient long-term way. That it is holistic and it is nourishing. Obviously, when you consume your music, you're very mindful of that. It seems like you understand when you take music and you trust your inner voice, even if you're not familiar with the artist or you think it's something outside of your comfort zone. That inner voice tells you if it's something you need to give it a second and third look and listen. You said you haven't practiced since you're 15. Obviously, that's not completely true. What are you doing these days for guitar enjoyment?
For enjoyment?
Yeah. I mean, is it something that's like security blanket to some? Like I know a lot of guys who just it's next to them and they have it in their lap a good chunk of the day. Or do you find yourself having to take yourself to your guitar and sit down, or do you ignore it for big periods
lately,
of time?
like the last 3 years have been a lot of changes in my life, just physically, you know. And it's a bit of an effort to situate myself in a room with a guitar. And I've been using it as a tool to hopefully discover melodies and chord changes and hope that something will come when I'm just sort of noodling. I don't really like to try and do anything anymore. It's, like you said, it's just security. You just got to hold it and you get in that mood. And so I'll pick up a guitar and hopefully I'm in that mood and I'll have a happy accident and come up with some song ideas or what could be a song or not, or a piano piece for somebody, or you know, if I come up with some chords and counterpoint on the bass and a melody, well, I try and sort of work it out on guitar, like all of the bits a little bit, you know. And of course I'm a huge Chet Atkins fan, and that's what I grew up listening to, was Chet, you know. And there's Chet and everybody else, in my humble opinion.
Lester and Chester is one of my favorite
the
records.
whole,
like
the
that
whole world. But so that was my dad. He's, you know, said, well, he's just the greatest guitar player ever. It's like, what's a Chet Atkins, you know? And then discovering when the Beatles came out, it's like George loved Chet Atkins and played the Chet. So it's just, again, more synchronicity that started from my dad. So, well, if you want to play guitar, this is what guitar playing's all about. But for me, it was like that country thing. Yeah. You know, boom, deep, boom. But he's actually, you know, one of the world's greatest guitar players in so many ways. And I have a lot of Chet stories, actually, but we don't have enough time. But I met him twice. I flew on a plane with him once, too. He sat right beside me. And I went to see him in the Hamilton place. And that's when it was publicized that he had intestinal cancer, you know, and he had 18 inches of his intestines removed. And I thought, wow, if I don't see him now, I might never get to see him. So I went there, and the place was full of all the guitar players I know, you know, like Russ McAllister from Hamilton, who I idolized Russ from the old days. But everybody left the show. Chet was amazing, and I thought, well, you know, I'm kind of bold. I think I'm just going to go back and see if I get in the dressing room. Well, I did. And I sat on his little counter, and there was Leona Boyd sitting there. We got to see Leona Boyd, and I chatted with Chet for a while. And then a few years later, when I started making records, I was flying to Nashville to do somebody's record. And I remember, I'll finish the story quickly. And the pilot said, the plane is full. And the pilot, we're just waiting on one last, you know, we'll be taking off in a few minutes. So the whole plane is full, and the seat beside me and the seat beside that is empty. Yeah. And I thought, oh, gee, I hope they don't take my seat.
Yeah, I got it.
You know, I've got the whole, all 3 seats to myself. You know, I mean, it's only like a half-hour flight to Nashville. I was in New York or something. And so I see this figure coming down, this tall, black, you know, figure getting on the front of the plane. And I looked and I went, oh my God, it's Chet Atkins, who I had met, you know, and saw. And he walked down and, oh God, please, I hope he's sitting beside me. You know, well, he did. He strapped himself into the seat and he put his newspaper down in the middle seat. And I realized that the guy sitting across the aisle from him was Paul Yandell, his guitar player. Okay. So, you know, being respectful, I didn't want to bug the guy. But after we took off and, you know, got comfy, I turned to him and said, hi, Chet. He goes, how you doing, son? Great. So I don't know if you remember meeting me, but I saw you in Hamilton. And we had a chat in your dressing room that night that Leona Boyd was there. And went, oh yeah, how you doing, son? I said, "Oh, just great. Just on my way to Nashville, you know." He said, "Wow, great. That's, you know." And then he picked up his paper and he started reading, and I just did not want to bother the man. But he was such a gentleman. He said it was very gentlemanly, he was very kind, and it was understood. We just want to get our flight and go to what we're doing. And I was like, you know, synchronicities, little synchronicities for me. And I had gone on to, like you were saying, you know, me and Chet and me, and, you know, Jerry Reed, and, you know, all those albums that he put out. So, comfort zone on guitar for me is to sit and sort of, gee, I wish I could do some of that. So if I hear a melody, it's like, well, okay, I'm going to practice some bass lines and see if I can do the chords and see if I can do the melodies and all that stuff. So I kind of religiously play this big long thing that I've come up with, and I've never played it from beginning to end without making a mistake. So that's my comfort blanket, is to just keep playing that bloody thing until maybe at least once I can play it all the way through. So it drives my wife crazy, my friends crazy, because hey, the action's too high, just like your guitar.
Yeah.
I can't play that thing on here, you know. But from that, I get distracted from this, and I discover that, and I come up with another song idea or two. And so I do some co-writing with people, and I have ideas now that I didn't when I was younger. I can't sing, so that's pointless there, and there's no reason for me to write lyrics. I'm still coming up with music. So there's been a few years of co-writing with Johnny Fay, the drummer from Tragically Hip. We've got maybe 3 CDs or more of film music, of songs, you know, all kinds of stuff. And there's so much stuff we don't really know what to do. I mean, Johnny's been saying, it's like, you've got to put a record out. You've got to have like your own record out. It's like, I'm not ready. There's, you know, yes, you're ready. So we keep recording all this stuff every time we get together in Toronto or in Kingston. And that's been going on for 4 or 5 years now. It's just buried in music. Mm-hmm. Well, that was never my forte, but it is kind of hard to keep up with. And here locally, my old friends Georgie Fab and Sue Leonard, we've been kind of reconnected in the last few years. So we're doing a lot of writing and co-writing, and we just last week had Greg Godovitz from Goddo to sing on a song that mostly Georgie penned and I helped with. It's a tribute song to George Harrison, which is like really lovely. And we just got Greg said, yeah, I'd love to sing this. So we heard it and we just put his vocals down. Greg did an amazing job singing, kind of John-like, you know. And he's a Beatle fanatic. And so we're going to mix that next week. And we don't know what to do with it. I have friends, I think maybe we're going to get that to Olivia, George's wife. And we'll see what happens there. And Sue Leonard, Georgie and Sue were writing. And she's going to be at the show.
Yes,
and
Sue's
I helped out with a few songs there.
I have the full list of everyone who's going to be at the show.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan's good
A lot
enough
of
to
people.
send that to me there.
Greg can't make it, sadly.
Greg can't make it, so we've got Ian Thomas, we've got Steve Strongman, Darcy Hepner, what a bass player, Dave Rave, been on the show, Sue Leonard, been on the show, Mark LaForme, got to get him on the show, Jamie Oakes, love Jamie, Jesse O'Brien, Dave King, Neil Nikifor,
Joel Gunther.
Yeah, Ronnie and the Rockets, Painted Black, Sonny Del Rio, love Sonny. That is going to be an action-packed show. That is Sunday, December 20th at This Ain't Hollywood. Do not miss it. I'm imploring you. Now, you've touched on how important the band were and their lyrics of that, what we kind of lazily call Americana these days. It was, and we've also touched on the Ontario connection, the Ronnie Hawkins connection, the Six Nations connection, the Woodstock and Big Pink connection, all of those little circles that kind of came together that made this band what it was. And through Dan Lanois, you all of a sudden were invited to sit with Robbie Robertson when he was recording his first record. So tell me about how that transpired, about that phone call.
I can recount what I was telling you in the cafe. It was not too lengthy.
No, we have no time.
Okay, so, sort of like for 10 years, Dan had been building Grand Avenue Studio to sort of get out of his little basement studio at his mom's place in Ancaster. He thought, well, I'm going to do a studio. And we were playing locally in bands together, and Dan kind of went into the production recording idea, and I stupidly didn't. I just kept playing, I didn't know from a tape recorder. I'd like, wow, you have a tape recorder, that's amazing to me. Well, Dan was doing this, and he's a very smart guy, and he's super passionate. You put that kind of intelligence and that kind of passion together, it's like he's going for the brass ring and his expression. So he was doing, as we all know, Sylvia Tyson and, just Ray Materek and all these great people in his mom's basement. And he thought, well, I can extrapolate on this, I guess. And he built Grant Avenue up. And because we sort of knew each other locally, in the 60s, I think I got called in to do something in a band that both Dan and I had, by proxy, we'd been in. A band called Morgan, Jackie and Lindsay Morgan. And Jackie and Lindsay thought, well, let's go in and make a record because we know Dan Lanois got a studio, that kind of thing. So they came in to record, and the first call I got to go to Grant Avenue was to play a bit on their album. So I got to meet Bob Deutsch and Ed Roth and see Dan Lanois and Mike McCurley and all the great musicians that were coming through there. And that just sort of started this thing about, hey, listen, well, come and do this jingle, and come and do that jingle. And this local artists like, Tom Wilson and Dave Rave and the Shakers. And I was, this is was kind of going that way. And I was in the control room a lot. And I was really fascinated with that world. Not so much sitting out here, but really fascinated by all the buttons and lights, because I never owned them, right? It's like, I'd never have this at home, so this is cool. What does that do? And what does this do? And what does that do, right? And so this went on for 10 years, and then, if I had to play an instrument I didn't play just for the jingle, I was like, well, what about this idea? That kind of thing. So it showed some experiment on my part, and I was kind of learning to play pedal steel and trying out the instruments that I loved to play on, but I wasn't really a player of them. So I learned pedal steel and mandolin and a little bit of violin and a bit of banjo and or anything else later on in the studio. It's quite true. It's just,
a lot of great
what does that
try,
do?
yeah.
Would that be good on this? But mostly it was guitar, And after 10 years or so, that story I told you is one night Dan, I was going to university. I was going to McMaster and playing with Mark LaForme and playing, going to university. And just sort of, I didn't know what I was doing. I was looking to see if music teacher or something else would happen if I went to university. I just wanted to give that a try because I had no school, when you fail grade 7 and they push you through to grade 8 and then you leave. I didn't have any high school. Right, so I thought, well, I don't know if I'm stupid because I'm just distracted by music, or am I just born stupid? So it was a bit of maybe there'd be a career change for me. I didn't want to drive a taxi. I didn't know whether or not I was really going to spend the rest of my life in bars. That it was becoming really, the 60s were over. The high school dances were over. It's like, well, where do you go from here? It's quite literally, I'm telling you. What am I going to do now? I have my whole life ahead of me. Is this what I want to do? There's got to be something better. And maybe I can be better. So I want to see if I'm just really born stupid. Well, the university showed me that you're both. Like somebody said, you get out what you put in. I was like, okay, well, I don't really have the chops for exams. So I'm going to have to get my marks from writing papers. And I always got A++ and all that. So I always got 100 on my papers, which blew me away. So I thought, okay, I'll focus on writing papers. And I did that with anthropology and also music and religion. So there was a connection there to, it's like the humanities, you know? And anthropology is, by definition, the study of man across space and time. That's pretty heavy stuff to get into. So in music and art history and through religion history and anthropology, I was finding myself. I was able to read all these books that I had no idea I would ever be reading in my life, you know? And it really opened myself to a world that I had missed, which is just life. I'd missed life. And so it was extrapolating itself for me. And this is important for the Robbie connection. At the time, I had hooked up with Ronnie Hawkins. And I spent 3.5 years with Ronnie Hawkins as well. So I was like his lead guitar player. And then for about a year and a half, I was his band leader. And I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life either. So there's the Ronnie connection, which is very deep for me. I love Ronnie Hawkins kind of like a father. Yeah, I don't know if he likes me much. I don't know. Yeah, I don't care. I love Ronnie Hawkins like I'm afraid to get in touch with him because I love him so much. I don't want to be rejected. And that's the truth. But I love Ronnie. I was just broken, absolutely broken, when we all thought he was going to pass away. I couldn't handle it. It was killing me. And so there's that deep emotional connection. Sitting on the edge of the bed with him watching TV at night when the rest of the band were kind of off being band members. You know, I just have so many great memories with Ronnie. I just love him dearly. And always will. So then there's the school thingy. And anthropology led me into, it's like it was, you know, third year. Now you're going to have to like pick something to focus on. And I found myself in Native studies, right? So there's a big chunk of my life there. One of the reasons I quit university is because of what I was learning. I couldn't take that kind of education. So what? We did what? What? I couldn't believe what I was.
That's not the story I heard going up.
It's just like so not Roy Rogers, you know? It was like very, very, very heavy. And I really got into it too deeply emotionally. I couldn't handle the truth that they were showing. It was brutal. What we did, what North America did was brutal. And I'm saying that on camera. It still is brutal thing. It's like, it's beyond the word shame, you know? So that went very deeply into my makeup. So we take those two thingies, we're kind of like Grand Avenue for 10 years, and here's Dan Lanois. One night Dan phoned me and said, you know, I'd like you to come down to the studio maybe around midnight or so and do some experimenting with me. And I was like, oh wow, really? Okay. I don't know what experimenting is. I had no idea what he meant because I never experimented in my life musically, you know? I had no idea. So I put all my stuff, my pedal steel, my pedals, and my guitars in my little Honda Civic and drove down to Grand Avenue. Maybe it was around midnight. And I went out into the playing area and said, well, just go plug your stuff in and get tuned up. So I got my guitar, I set up my pedal steel, and I have 4 or 5 pedals on the floor and my little volume pedal. And I'm kind of plugging stuff in and got my power bar. This is literally, and I'm tuning my guitar as I'm checking my pedals to make sure I got power and the sound, and tuning my guitar as I kind of go along. But as I'm doing that, there's always some sort of, well, something musical. I mean, I don't just turn it on and go, you know, it's like, well, I'm doing something musical. I got to play something. It's just because it's my nature. So I'm playing something and kind of just making stuff up as I go. It's like 2.5 minutes, if even that. So I got the guitar in tune and went down all the pedals, and I look up. I was like, okay, well, everything seems to be working. And through the glass, Dan Lamb was doing like this, and he said, well, come on in. And I thought, he's going to discuss what we're going to do tonight, because I'm all ready to go. He said, have a seat on the couch and have a listen to something. So I literally thought he was going to play me some of his stuff that he wanted me to work on. So I'm sitting there, and he turns the speakers up really loud, which is great at Grant Avenue, these big JBLs, and he knows I like it loud. And what he was going to play me, it was worthy of being really loud. So he cranked it. I'm sitting there like this, and my jaw dropped. My eyes were bugged. What he had done was he had recorded what I had just done through some gizmos here in the rack in the control room, and that's what he was playing back. Lexicon prime time and some delays and octaves here and there. I could not believe my ears. I had no idea what I was listening to. I said, what the hell is that? I said, gee, that's what you just did. And I know Dan was immediately looking for my reaction, as I told you. And I went, basically I was, wow. It's just amazing to me. Yeah, wow. He said, all right, Bill, so I think we're done for the night. I said, what? He said, I've got a question to ask you. I've got these offers to do some records, and I wanted to get your opinion. We're done? We're not going to do anything? No, this is fine. Okay, so a couple of artists, and then he said, and the other one is a guy named Robbie Robertson. It's like, the Robbie Robertson from the band. Who do you think I should... I'm serious. He said, who do you think I should produce next record? I said, you're kidding me. You're serious, Robbie Robertson? I said, Dan, it's us. It's a no-brainer. Simply Red or Robbie Robertson, excuse me? He said, that's what I thought you'd say, Bill. And so he did his, I'm thinking maybe it's time to get you out of here. I think I'd like to take you with me to California and work on this Robbie's record. Because I've already decided, I thought that's what you were going to say, I've already decided that I'm doing Robbie. I went, wow, I was blown away. I mean, I knew about U2. That's impressive enough, but they were just an Irish rock band to me. They weren't Robbie. Mm-hmm. Right? So he said, I was like, what? And as I said to everybody, and you, I said, what do you need me for? Dan, you're an amazing guitar player, and obviously Robbie's in it. What would I do? That's I asked him point blank, what would I do? And he said, well, maybe you'll keep the guitars in tune, maybe you'll make coffee. I just think you should do it. So I'm going to go up and use the bathroom, and when I come down, I want you to make up your mind. I was like, oh, okay. And this is all very literal. And he went upstairs, and I sat there and thought immediately, well, you can always come home. If you don't try, you never, it's a sin. You're never going to find out if you don't try. And by the time I had those two thoughts, he had come back down. He didn't use the bathroom. He just went upstairs and came back down, opened doors, so you made your mind up. I went, yeah. Okay. So he literally reached over to the phone in the control room, and he dialed the number, and he said, hey, Robbie, it's Dan. I couldn't hear what Robbie was saying. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've got this guy who would like to bring this guy down. His name is Bill Dillon. And Dan told me what Robbie said. I asked him. He said, well, I don't know this guy from Adam, quote unquote. And Dan said, well, I just think it would be a really good idea. Apparently Robbie said, well, if you think it's a good idea, okay. Because, I'm going to be maybe on a payroll. Mm-hmm. It's got record companies, and they got hotels and car rentals, and they got to feed me, they got to pay, so yeah. It's got to come out of Robbie's pocket at some point. So it was important that Dan said, I think it would be a good idea. I'm the producer. The artist has got to say, okay. And that's what happened. So Dan said, okay, in a couple of weeks you're going to LA. What? Well, I was just blown away, because I'm still playing in bar bands. I was in Mark LaForme's band at the time, who I love. I love Mark LaForme. And next thing I know, I'm sitting in Robbie's writing studio. It's about the same size as this, his office and his little control room in there, you know, and I'm sitting there with an acoustic guitar, and Robbie Robertson's just sitting there, and Dan Lamo over my shoulder. Boom. So years later, after the Robbie records and TV shows and the trips to Europe and all of that kind of stuff, Robbie calls me. I thought we were doing another Robbie record. This is years later. So I've got this kind of project. At the time, it was just a project, and it's to do with Native Americans. Like, really? So I'd like you to come down and have a listen to some stuff. Wow, okay, you know. Next thing I know, I'm sitting in the same little writing studio, and he starts telling me about the talent and artistry of Native Americans all over North America, and that he's discovered that he's, you know, part Native American. It's like, I didn't know that. He said, yeah, I've got, you know, some Native blood in me, so I'm kind of getting involved. So all that time since the last Robbie record, he'd been collecting all these CDs and cassettes, and it's like by the thousands, from Native American artists, writers and singers, and this whole world, you know. And I was blown away by this. He didn't know that I was, you know, a Native student. Mm-hmm. And I didn't tell him. So this was a huge synchronicity for me. You know, this goes right back from doing acid in the 60s and Robbie on the headphones and the band to university and Native. This is all the synchronicities. That, you know, it's really important that you know this. You know. And so he said, I've put together 10 or 12 things that I think would be good to do, and I want your opinion. I mean, he's asking my opinion. Okay, so I sat in his chair, I put the headphones on, and the speakers are on, and he starts playing stuff. And I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, listening to one thing at a time. And I would look up at Robbie, and he'd be sitting there like this each time. And I would look up and react. I'm just physically reacting. And a couple of them, I would just open my eyes, and my tears were flowing. They said, you know, I thought you'd like that one, you know? I was like, holy cow. I mean, wow. I can't even talk about it. I can't even talk about it. There's nothing to say. And so he said, okay, well, you know, let's do this. So we started working on this Native American project. He said, well, I got this thing to do for Turner Network, and they're doing this documentary, and they've asked me to do the music, and I have to pick through all of these people to perform, and, you know, I gotta write songs, and I gotta do all the stuff, and I want you to help me do this. What, me? You want me to help you? Sure, I'm in, you know. So I went home. He started working towards it, and he calls me down. Next thing I know, I'm at the hotel again. I'm in my suite, and I've got my rental car, and I'm going to work every day at the studio. And Kevin, usually I'm listening to the car radio like a junkie. Mm-hmm. It's all, you know, I'm just, you know.
What else is
you
on?
know, that first 2 seconds of it. Oh, you know. I could not listen to anything at the time. I just got so into it and so drawn into it, I couldn't listen to anything on the car radio. I couldn't think any other music. I just was so drawn into this. It was just all so... So we did this Indian album, and it led to another one. We started doing all these tours in like Rome, headlining in Rome, and Sicily we played. We went to England, all this, you know, this whole thing. So the synchronicity, you see what I'm saying, of my life. I get drawn into these realities in my life that somehow, through a bigger picture, a bigger serendipity, and I know it's a plan. I just don't know where it's going. I don't know the answer. I just know that the signs are there all the time. So the Robbie connection started with Dan, and basically, I owe everything to Dan. He said, you know, I'll get you out there, but, you know, you're on your own from here on in. You know, you gotta pull up your socks. You're on your own. I'll get you there, and you're on your own. So I'm forever indebted to him. And I think I just, you know, I count on the truth of the serendipity. I believe in the synchronicity of the universe and life and my little part in it. Like, you know, I have no doubts. I just have the waiting game like anybody else, right? So Robbie, next thing I know, he's phoning me. It's like, you got to come and do this Guitar Legends in Spain. I can't, Robbie. I'm producing a record. I can't. No, you got to come. So he gets a record company guy to phone me. He gets his assistant to phone me. I'm working with Roman Clune up at some studio here in Stony Creek. I'm producing a record by these two girls from Vancouver, Lava Hayes, my first production. And it's like, I can't go. You know, I gotta. He said, be there or be square.
Yeah.
Literally, he said that. I'd never heard the phrase before. I'm on the phone, but so it turns out like this. Before you go to the next thing, he has a friend that has an Italian restaurant in Toronto. Well, he bought the restaurant that night, and he said, I want you to come and meet me in Toronto. What, you're in town? I'm in town. I want you to come and see me and meet me at this restaurant in Toronto, an Italian restaurant at such and such o'clock. And I was like, I had to tell the engineer and the girls, like, I got to go talk to Robbie. He's not taking no for an answer. This is literally, you know, I drove to Toronto. I find a place, I park the car, and there's this long restaurant, and this guy with an apron on, standing way at the back of the kitchen door, and there's Robbie sitting with some amazing girlfriend or something, and assistant Jared, you know. There's nobody in the restaurant. He paid for the restaurant, I'm sure, it's just like nobody to be there. And I sat there, and he did the spiel. Well, he just pushed all the buttons. Next thing I know, I'm on a plane, you know, going to Spain, and I didn't know a Seville was just an orange to me.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be Expo for them, and they'd built this beautiful city, and I learned what Guitar Legends in Spain was when I got there, right? So there's Bob Dylan, there's Keith Richards, there's Les Paul, there's, you know, Roger McGuinn, as you say, and I'm playing this thing with all these people for a week, meeting like, hi, you know, shaking Les Paul's hand on stage was like, what, you know, this is me, I'm pinching myself the whole thing. So then we went up and played, Robbie and I played some stuff. We had Peter Gabriel's rhythm section.
Yeah.
Right?
Not too shabby, right?
Not too bad. Yep, they did the best they could. So Tony Levin, Manu Cachet, and Bruce Hornsby helping out, keyboards and vocals, and Ivan Neville, and the Chapatula singers, and me, and so Robbie's been great with me that way, you know. He's always.
Well, he's a proud member, Six Nations, you know, that right on the cusp of Hamilton. We'll wrap our arms and claim them for our little bit of fame. Yeah. But, as you said, incredible depth of talent.
Synchronicity. Well, look, it's Mark LaForme and the Six Nations Reserve is going on with them. It leads to Robbie, and it's all these little things turn into the biggest thing, which is the picture of your life. The picture of your life. And here's Bill Dillon in Spain with Robbie Robertson right here, barbershoppodcast.com.
Here he is, Robbie Robertson. Thank you.
Stiletto sound of thunder all over the ghetto. One-eyed Jackson, king with the axe, come from the wrong side of the tracks. Go back and go back to your woods. Go back to your woods. Go back and go back. Go back to your woods. Go back to your woods. When the night it goes down on the shoulder, if the women don't get you, the music will.
Going downtown, won't turn around. A hole in the ground. But before we come into this world, we came from a nation. Yeah, and now we're here to tell a story.
Buenas noches, Sevilla. ¿Cómo estáis? winter season. Indian summer, look around and it's gone. Why you wanna save the best for last? We grow up so slowly and grow up so fast. We don't talk about forever. No, no, no. We'll just catch it while we can. On the wind, on the wind. I grab on to the moment. Don't let it slip away out of my hand. What about now? What about now? Forget about tomorrow. It's too far away. What about now? What about now? Close your eyes. Don't talk of yesterday. It's too far away. It's too far away. What about now? I'm coming out of the shadows. I'm getting off of this one-way street. Blue memories, they just gather dust. Leave them in the rain, they turn into rust. And did you see the march to freedom? Did you ever see Savannah move in the middle of the night? All of the people walking in a line said to the man, is it my time? What about now? What about now? Forget about tomorrow. It's too far away. What about now? What about now? Just close your eyes. Don't talk of yesterday. It's too far away, too far away. It's too far away. What about now? In the walk of a lifetime. When you know it's the right time, bring it to me. I can't wait until the ship comes in. I can't wait start all over again. The hands of a wise man make the rules for you. What about now? Forget about tomorrow. It's too far away. It's too far away. What about now? Don't talk of yesterday. It's too far away. Too far away. It's too far away. What about now? What about now? Forget about tomorrow. It's too far away. It's too far away. What about now? Just close your eyes. Don't talk of yesterday. It's too far away. It's too far away. It's too far.
It's Robbie Robertson live in Spain at the Expo 1992 featuring tonight's guest,
And that was Les Paul.
Les Paul.
That was Les Paul.
Introducing the show.
Isn't that amazing?
It is so fantastic. It's amazing to do this show every week. It's amazing to have you in here. I want to thank you so much. It's
I'm
been
really,
a
really
magical
glad
night.
that you did. I'm sorry it took so long to.
Hey, it was
here.
worth the wait. From Ryan Cannon, Gary Greenland, tonight's guest, Bill Dillon. Thanks so much for
Thank you,
coming out.
guys.
Don't forget, the 20th of December, Sunday, 7 p.m. This Ain't Hollywood. Bill Dillon and friends, fantastic night of talent. Every week on Barbershop Podcast, we got great music, great people, and a reason to live. Another reason to live. There's lots. See you next week.